Sabrina stands in Trevor's office, resignation letter trembling in her hand. "Who's going to hire you at 40? He laughs, leaning back in his leather chair. 17 years. And this is how you thank me? You're nothing without this company." His words slice through her, but not as they once would have. She thinks about the secret lunches, the whispered meetings, the plans taking shape. "You're right," Sabrina replies with a calm smile that confuses him. "Thank you for everything." The resignation letter lands on his desk like a gauntlet thrown. I still remember my first day at Meridian Financial Services. 23 years old, business degree still warm in my hands, and eyes wide with ambition. The gleaming glass headquarters in downtown Chicago had seemed like a palace of possibility. That was 17 years ago, before I understood how quickly time could pass while dreams slowly died. Back then, everyone said I had potential. "Sabrina's going places," they'd say. I believed them. I poured everything into Meridian, working weekends while friends built families, canceling vacations to finish quarterly projections, answering emails at 3 in the morning because the Tokyo office needed something urgently. I thought dedication would be rewarded. For the first 9 years, it seemed true. I rose from junior analyst to senior analyst to team coordinator. My analytical models became the standard across 4 departments. When clients faced complex financial challenges, my name was the one managers called. I trained dozens of new employees, sharing everything I knew without reservation. Then Trevor Matthews arrived. Trevor swept in from Goldman Sachs 8 years ago, all polished smiles and Harvard connections, immediately appointed as department head despite knowing nothing about our specialized client base. I remember offering to brief him on our systems. "I'm sure I'll figure it out," he said with a dismissive wave, barely glancing at my detailed orientation packet. Within months, the department culture shifted. Suddenly, golf skills seemed more valuable than financial acumen. The old meritocracy faded, replaced by something I couldn't navigate as easily. Still, I adapted. I worked harder, produced better results, stayed later. When Trevor implemented his new client relationship model, I was the one who found the critical flaw that would have cost us millions. He reluctantly revised it, but never acknowledged my contribution. I accepted it all because I loved my work, believed in the company, and, frankly, had invested too many years to start over. Besides, I was still advancing, albeit slower. I had seniority, respect from colleagues, and the satisfaction of mastery. I told myself that was enough, until the day I found the payroll documents. It was an innocent mistake. Juanita from HR had accidentally included a comparative salary analysis in a folder of recruitment materials I needed for training a new team member. One glance told me something was wrong. I looked closer, feeling suddenly cold. The numbers were unmistakable. Despite my seniority, stellar performance reviews, and responsibilities, I was earning 40% less than male colleagues with half my experience. Some I had personally trained were now making nearly double my salary. At first, I told myself there must be some mistake. Perhaps these figures were projections, or included bonuses I wasn't seeing. I spent that night reviewing my own compensation history, comparing it against industry standards. By morning, the truth was undeniable. I had been systematically underpaid for years. The next day, I requested a meeting with Trevor. I prepared thoroughly, bringing market comparisons and a detailed outline of my contributions to Meridian. I practiced a measured professional approach, determined to address this as a straightforward business matter. Trevor kept me waiting for 45 minutes before his assistant ushered me in. He didn't look up from his phone as I entered, and continued typing for several more minutes while I stood there. When he finally acknowledged me, his expression made it clear this was an unwelcome interruption. I presented my case calmly, emphasizing that I wasn't making accusations, but seeking equity based on my proven value to the company. I showed him the numbers, explained how my client retention rate exceeded department averages, and outlined innovations I'd implemented that increased efficiency. When I finished, Trevor leaned back and chuckled. "Sabrina, you're looking at this all wrong," he said. "The men in these positions have families to support. They're breadwinners. You should be grateful Meridian accommodates your work-life balance." "My work-life balance," I repeated, genuinely confused. "I work 60-hour weeks regularly. But you don't have the same pressures, do you? No wife or kids depending on your income. Besides, at 40, you should be focusing on job security rather than compensation packages. The market isn't exactly clamoring for middle-aged financial analysts." I sat there stunned as he continued explaining why I should be thankful for what I had rather than questioning it. I was barely registering his words, too shocked by the naked discrimination to form a coherent response. "Let's revisit this after your performance review next quarter," he concluded, already turning back to his phone. "I'm sure we can find some appropriate adjustment." I walked out of his office feeling numb. 17 years of loyalty, and this was my value? A pat on the head and a reminder of my age and gender? The true shock came the next morning. When I opened my email, I found a message from Trevor sent to the entire team. The Johnson account, our biggest client, which I had personally managed for 7 years, was being reassigned to Mark Wellner. Mark, who had joined Meridian 3 years ago. Mark, who I had trained on our client management system. The official reason. The client needs a fresh perspective. The real message couldn't have been clearer. This is what happens when you ask questions. The Johnson reassignment was just the beginning. Over the next few months, a pattern emerged, so gradually that an outsider might not have noticed, but I felt each cut. My name disappeared from meeting invites for projects I had previously led. Reports I submitted went unacknowledged until someone else presented similar findings. Clients I had built relationships with for years were quietly transferred to other managers. One Tuesday morning, I arrived to find my office was now needed for a new director. My things had been moved to a cubicle near the bathroom. The message was clear. I was being erased. Most of my colleagues pretended not to notice. A few gave sympathetic glances, but kept their distance, aware that association with me might taint them too. Only Allison Bradley, a financial consultant who had joined Meridian 4 years ago, dared to acknowledge the situation. "This is garbage," she whispered during a department meeting where Trevor had just interrupted me for the 3rd time. "You created the whole framework he's presenting." She was right. The customer retention analysis Trevor was proudly showcasing was my work, down to the color coding in the slides. I had developed it during a month of late nights, analyzing 7 years of client data to identify early warning signs of account vulnerability. Now Trevor was presenting it as the executive team's new initiative. "Thanks," I whispered back to Allison. "It's fine." But it wasn't fine. Each day brought new indignities. Trevor began scheduling mandatory team meetings during my long-standing lunch appointment with Dr. Arling. Spencer, my physical therapist for a back injury I'd sustained years earlier. When I explained the conflict, he raised his eyebrows. "Well, priorities, Sabrina. The team needs your input, but if doctor appointments are more important than contributing here." I rescheduled my therapy, of course. The final straw came during the 3rd quarter review. I had created a new client acquisition strategy that addressed the weakness in our Midwest market. The proposal included detailed demographic analysis, competitive positioning, and a phased implementation plan that could potentially bring $30 million in new business within 18 months. I'd spent weekends perfecting it, convinced this could be my path back to recognition. I submitted the proposal 3 weeks in advance and heard nothing. When the review meeting arrived, I came prepared to present, only to discover my proposal wasn't on the agenda. "We'll have to table your ideas until next quarter," Trevor said when I inquired. "We're focusing on Mark's social media strategy today." Mark looked uncomfortable but didn't speak up. His strategy was a 2-page memo suggesting we increase our Twitter presence. That afternoon, I sat at my desk staring at my computer screen, wondering how much more I could take. 17 years at one company, and what did I have to show for it? A cubicle by the bathroom and a boss who couldn't even be bothered to steal my ideas properly. Coffee break? Allison appeared at my cubicle entrance, holding 2 mugs. We walked to the small courtyard behind the building. It was September, and the first hints of autumn colored the trees lining the adjacent park. I found myself confiding in her, releasing months of frustration. "You should leave," Allison said bluntly when I finished. "You're brilliant, Sabrina. Any company would be lucky to have you. Who's going to hire me at 40? I echoed Trevor's frequent reminder. "I've been at Meridian my entire career. What if this is as good as it gets?" "That's Trevor talking, not you," Allison said. "Look, I worked at 3 firms before Meridian. Trust me, this toxic culture isn't normal." I sipped my coffee, wanting to believe her but afraid to hope. We returned to our desks, and I tried to focus on the mundane report Trevor had assigned that morning. 2 hours later, I headed to Lightwell Cafe, across street for lunch. I always ordered the same salad, eating alone at a corner table while reviewing work on my tablet. It was a sad routine I had fallen into, but it gave me 30 minutes of peace. "Sabrina? Sabrina Miller?" I looked up to see a woman with curly auburn hair staring at me with recognition. "It's Amanda Wells." "From Northwestern? Professor Hardin's investment seminar?" The name clicked immediately. Amanda and I had been study partners our senior year of college. We had lost touch after graduation when she moved to New York, and I stayed in Chicago. "Amanda! Oh my goodness, how are you?" I stood to hug her, genuinely delighted by this unexpected connection to my past. "I'm fantastic. Just moved back to Chicago last month." She gestured to the chair across from me. "Mind if I join you? Unless you're in the middle of something important." I glanced down at my tablet, displaying the meaningless report Trevor wanted by end of day. Nothing that can't wait. "Please, sit." The next 30 minutes flew by as we caught up on 18 years of life. Amanda had worked at several investment firms in New York, gotten married, divorced, and now returned to Chicago as Director of Strategic Development for Pinnacle Innovations. "Pinnacle?" I said, surprised. "They're our biggest competitor." "Don't hold it against me," she laughed. "I had multiple offers when I moved back, and they made the best case." Her expression turned curious. "What about you? Still at Meridian after all this time? You must be running the place by now." I felt a flush of embarrassment. "Not exactly. Still in analytics, though." "Really? I remember you were the star of our program. Professor Hardin was convinced you'd revolutionize something." I shrugged, uncomfortable with the comparison between her career trajectory and mine. "It's stable. 17 years builds a lot of institutional knowledge." Amanda studied me for a moment. "Institutional knowledge. That's what they call it when they want your expertise but don't want to pay you what it's worth." The comment hit too close to home. I changed the subject, asking about Chicago neighborhoods as she was house hunting. When she mentioned challenges facing financial services in the current economy, I found myself explaining my client acquisition framework that Trevor had shelved. Amanda's expression changed as I spoke, growing increasingly focused. She asked pointed questions about implementation timelines and resource requirements. I explained the entire model, feeling that familiar rush of excitement about its potential. It felt good to have someone actually listen. "This is brilliant, Sabrina," she said when I finished. "Absolutely brilliant. And Meridian hasn't implemented it?" "They're considering it," I lied, unwilling to admit the complete dismissal. Amanda checked her watch and frowned. "I have to run to a meeting, but I'd love to continue this conversation. Are you free for lunch next week? Same time? Same place?" "Sure," I said, surprised by the invitation. As she gathered her things, Amanda paused. "You know, you should really consider whether Meridian appreciates what they have in you." She handed me her business card. "The right people should hear concepts like yours." I watched her leave, turning her business card over in my fingers. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of something I had almost forgotten. Possibility. I told myself I was just catching up with an old college friend when I met Amanda for lunch the following week. But when I arrived at Lightwell Cafe and saw her sitting with a distinguished gray-haired man in an impeccable suit, I knew this was something else entirely. "Sabrina, meet Jack Patterson," Amanda said as I approached their table. "Executive Vice President at Pinnacle. Jack, this is Sabrina Miller, the financial genius I was telling you about." My palms instantly dampened. Was I really having lunch with a direct competitor while still employed at Meridian? This crossed professional lines I had never even approached in 17 years. I should leave immediately, make an excuse about an emergency at work. Instead, I shook Jack's hand and sat down. "Amanda wouldn't stop talking about your client acquisition strategy," Jack said, his voice warm but his eyes evaluative. "I hope you don't mind her bringing me along." "I should have asked first," Amanda added, looking genuinely apologetic. "But after our conversation last week, I couldn't stop thinking about your framework. It addresses exactly the challenges Jack's team has been facing." I shifted uncomfortably in my chair. "I appreciate the interest, but I should clarify that this is Meridian intellectual property. I developed it as part of my role there." Jack nodded. "Of course. We're not asking for proprietary information. I'm simply interested in your general approach to regional market expansion, nothing specific to Meridian's implementation." I relaxed slightly. Discussing theoretical market strategies wasn't crossing any ethical lines. Besides, it wasn't as if Meridian valued my ideas anyway. The conversation flowed easily. Jack asked insightful questions that demonstrated his deep understanding of the industry. For the first time in years, I felt intellectually challenged and respected. No one interrupted me or dismissed my analysis. They leaned forward when I spoke, taking notes and building on my concepts. "Your understanding of client psychology is remarkable," Jack commented as we finished our meals. "Most analysts get lost in the numbers and forget there are humans making these decisions. That's what separates the mathematicians from the true financial strategists," Amanda added. Their appreciation was intoxicating after years of Trevor's dismissal. When Jack suggested meeting again the following week, I agreed without hesitation. Back at Meridian that afternoon, the contrast was jarring. Trevor had assigned me to compile 5 years of expense reports for a routine audit, a task typically given to interns. Meanwhile, he had promoted Danielle Williams, a recent hire in her 20s, to lead client presentations despite her limited understanding of our products. "Danielle has that fresh energy clients respond to," Trevor explained when I questioned the decision. "You're more of a behind-the-scenes person, Sabrina. Numbers, not people." I bit my tongue, remembering how Jack and Amanda had praised my understanding of client psychology just hours earlier. That night, I began documenting everything. Each instance where Trevor had taken credit for my work, every discriminatory comment about my age or gender, all the projects reassigned without justification, the salary disparities. I created a detailed timeline stretching back to his arrival, noting witnesses and preserving relevant emails. I wasn't sure what I planned to do with this information, but the systematic documentation gave me a sense of control I hadn't felt in months. The lunch meetings with Amanda and Jack continued. Sometimes others from Pinnacle joined us, including their head of analytics and client services director. Each conversation ventured further from theoretical discussions into specific strategies. They shared Pinnacle's expansion challenges openly, and I found myself offering solutions drawn from my years of experience. During our fourth lunch, after the others had departed, Jack leaned forward with an intensity that made my heart race. "Sabrina, I'm going to be direct. We want you at Pinnacle." Amanda nodded beside him. "Not just as an analyst. We want to create an entirely new division around your client acquisition framework, with you as executive vice president." I stared at them, certain I had misheard. Executive vice president? But I've never held an executive position. "Titles at Meridian are meaningless," Jack replied. "You've been operating at an executive level for years without the recognition or compensation. We'd be correcting that injustice." "This isn't impulsive," Amanda added, seeing my shocked expression. "We've vetted your ideas thoroughly. The executive team is unanimously enthusiastic." "I don't know what to say," I managed. "Say you'll meet with William Brooks, our CEO, next week," Jack said. "Let him share his vision for the division you'd lead." As I walked back to Meridian, my mind raced with possibilities. Executive vice president, a division built around my strategies, recognition for my ideas. It seemed too good to be true. And yet, a voice that sounded suspiciously like Trevor's whispered, "Who's going to hire you at 40? You're nothing without Meridian." I pushed the thought aside as I reached my desk, where an email from Trevor awaited. He was assigning me the year-end analysis for all major accounts, a massive project usually divided among 3 team members, due in just 2 weeks. "I know you'll make this your top priority," his message concluded. The subtext was clear. No evenings off, no weekends free, no excuses. This was punishment for questioning him, designed to consume every moment of my time. I looked around the office. Mark was showing Danielle something on his computer, both laughing. Trevor was in his glass-walled office, feet up on his desk, chatting on the phone. No one seemed to notice or care that I had just been assigned an impossible workload. In that moment, something shifted inside me. This wasn't loyalty I was showing. It was imprisonment in a cage I had helped build. And for the first time, I could see a door standing open. The next 2 weeks became a blur of double lives. By day, I was still Sabrina Miller, dedicated Meridian employee, working furiously on the year-end analysis Trevor had dropped in my lap. By evening, I was Sabrina Miller, executive vice president in waiting, meeting with Pinnacle leadership, and imagining a future I had stopped believing possible. The meetings with Pinnacle escalated quickly after Jack and Amanda's offer. I met William Brooks, Pinnacle's CEO, at an upscale restaurant far from the financial district where no Meridian employees would accidentally spot us. William was not what I expected. In his early 60s, with kind eyes and a thoughtful manner, he listened more than he spoke. "Amanda and Jack tell me you're exceptional," he said after preliminaries. "They don't use that word lightly." "They're very kind," I replied automatically. the reflexive self-deprecation of someone trained not to acknowledge their own worth. William shook his head. Kindness has nothing to do with it. They're strategic executives evaluating talent. Tell me about your vision for regional market acquisition. For the next hour, I outlined my framework in greater detail than I ever had at Meridian. William asked penetrating questions that pushed me to expand my thinking even further. By dessert, we were sketching organizational structures for the new division on napkins. We'll need to build the right team, William mused. You should have significant input on personnel. I can start from scratch? I asked, surprised. You can bring people from Meridian if they're the right fit, he clarified. Non-compete clauses don't hold up well in Illinois if the employee is substantially improving their position. The idea of bringing others with me hadn't occurred to me. I thought of Allison immediately, and several other talented people Trevor had marginalized over the years. I'd like to make you a formal offer, William said as our meeting concluded. Jack will send the details tomorrow. Take your time reviewing it. This is a significant life change. Back at my apartment that night, I couldn't sleep. Was I really considering leaving the company that had been my professional home for my entire adult life? What if I failed spectacularly at Pinnacle? What if this was all an elaborate plot to extract Meridian information? My phone chimed with an email notification. Jack had sent the offer letter as promised. I opened it with trembling fingers, then gasped aloud. The compensation package was triple my current salary, with substantial equity options, performance bonuses, and benefits far beyond anything Meridian offered. The job description outlined authority and responsibilities I had only dreamed of, including budget control and direct input to board-level strategy. This was real. This was happening. Yet as the initial shock faded, doubt crept in. Could I really succeed at this level? My entire career had been spent at Meridian. I knew their systems, their clients, their culture. Starting over at 40 seemed terrifying. What if Amanda and Jack were overestimating my abilities? What if I had just gotten lucky with a few good ideas? The next morning at Meridian, Trevor called me into his office. How's the year-end analysis coming? On schedule, I replied, though it had required working until 2 a.m. every night that week. Good. Because the board moved up the deadline. They need it by Friday. Today was Tuesday. The analysis was less than half complete. That's not possible, I said, forgetting myself. There's over 100 accounts to process. Trevor's expression hardened. I'm not asking, Sabrina. Make it happen. Sleep at your desk if you have to. Why not let Mark or Danielle help? They could take a portion of the accounts. They're prepping for the Denver client presentations. This is your responsibility. I returned to my cubicle, feeling the familiar pressure building behind my eyes that preceded tears. I refused to shed at work. Through the glass walls of his office, I could see Trevor smirking as he turned back to his computer. That evening, I met my sister Jessica for dinner, something we'd planned weeks ago for her birthday. I considered canceling, given my impossible deadline, but I'd already missed too many family events for Meridian's demands. You look exhausted, Jessica said the moment she saw me. I told her everything, the words pouring out in a torrent of frustration, fear, and fragile hope. The discrimination at Meridian. The Pinnacle offer. My paralyzing indecision. Are you serious? Jessica set down her fork. There's no decision to make. Take the job. It's not that simple. What if I can't handle it? What if they realize I'm not executive material? Jessica studied me with the penetrating gaze that had intimidated me since childhood, though she was 5 years younger. When did you start believing what that jerk Trevor thinks about you? I don't, I protested weakly. Really? Because I'm hearing his voice coming out of your mouth. She reached for my hand. The sister I know has never backed down from a challenge. The sister I know built financial models that saved millions for a company that didn't deserve her loyalty. The sister I know is absolutely executive material. I felt tears, threatening again. I'm scared, Jess. Good. That means it matters. But being scared isn't a reason to stay in a place that's killing your spirit. Her expression softened. Mom and Dad didn't raise us to play it safe. They raised us to go after what we deserve. Our parents had both been educators who valued courage above comfort. What would they think of me now, paralyzed by fear of the unknown? What about the year-end analysis? I asked, grasping at practical concerns. If I leave now, I'll be burning bridges. Jessica laughed. Those bridges are already smoldering. Besides, you're not walking out tomorrow. Give proper notice, do what you can on their projects, and leave with dignity. That's more than they've shown you. When I returned home that night, I opened my laptop to continue the impossible analysis. Instead, I found myself reviewing Pinnacle's offer letter again. The words, Executive Vice President, still seemed surreal next to my name. Yet somewhere beneath the fear, excitement flickered. Not just about the title or money, but about being valued, having a voice, building something meaningful. I was about to close the document when my phone rang. An unknown number. Sabrina Miller, I answered, automatically. Sabrina, it's Amanda. I hope I'm not calling too late. Not at all. I was just reviewing the offer. That's partly why I'm calling. William was wondering if you had any questions or concerns. I hesitated, then decided honesty was the only path forward. To be blunt, I'm terrified. I've never operated at this level. What if I'm not what you all think I am? Amanda's laugh was warm, not mocking. Do you think we'd create an entire division around someone we weren't absolutely confident in? We've done our homework, Sabrina. This isn't a gamble for us. But 17 years at one company. I'm institutionalized. What if I can't adapt? That's precisely why we want you, Amanda replied. You've survived 17 years in a toxic environment while maintaining your creativity and analytical edge. That shows extraordinary resilience and adaptability. Her confidence was contagious. We spoke for another hour about practical transition concerns, and with each question answered, my path became clearer. The next day at Meridian, I was hurrying to the break room when I overheard Trevor's voice from the conference room, door slightly ajar. Once the year-end report is complete, we should start phasing out Sabrina's position, he was saying. We can distribute her accounts among the newer analysts and save on that salary line. Are you sure? It was Frank Dorian, the CFO. She has institutional knowledge that would be difficult to replace. We've documented her processes thoroughly, Trevor replied. Besides, she's past her prime. The younger team members bring more energy and fresh ideas. I froze in the hallway, heart hammering. They were planning to eliminate my position regardless of my performance. After 17 years, I was simply a cost to be cut. In that moment, all doubt vanished. I returned to my desk, opened my email, and began drafting my resignation letter. I spent that weekend finalizing my decision and preparing my resignation. I accepted Pinnacle's offer formally by email on Sunday night, receiving an enthusiastic response from William within minutes despite the hour. We agreed I would start in 3 weeks, giving me time to provide standard notice to Meridian and take a brief break before beginning my new role. Monday morning, I printed my resignation letter and rehearsed what I would say to Trevor. The letter was brief and professional, expressing gratitude for my time at Meridian while firmly stating my departure date 2 weeks hence. I wore my best suit, a navy blue ensemble I reserved for client meetings, armor against the confrontation to come. At precisely 9:30, Trevor's scheduled office hour, I knocked on his door. "What is it, Sabrina?" "I'm busy." He didn't look up from his computer. "I need a few minutes of your time. It's important." He sighed dramatically, but gestured to the chair across from his desk. I remained standing. "I'm submitting my resignation," I said, placing the letter before him. "My last day will be 2 weeks from today." Now he looked up, first surprised, then amused. "Resignation? And go where, exactly?" "I've accepted a position at another firm." I kept my voice neutral, determined to maintain professionalism. Trevor leaned back in his chair, a smirk spreading across his face. "Let me guess. Entry-level position? Significant pay cut? Desperate move?" "The terms are confidential, but I'm satisfied with the opportunity." He picked up my letter, glanced at it, then laughed outright. "Who's going to hire you at 40, Sabrina? Seriously, 17 years and this is how you thank Meridian? You're nothing without this company." Each word was designed to wound, to make me doubt myself. Just weeks ago, they would have hit their mark. Now they felt like the desperate flailing of someone losing control. "You've been here your entire career," he continued. "You think you can start over now? The market eats middle-aged women alive. You'll be crawling back within a month, begging for your old position." I thought about the division being created around my ideas at Pinnacle, the team I would lead, the salary reflecting my true worth, the respect I'd been shown in every interaction. "You're right," I replied with a smile that clearly confused him. "Thank you for everything, Trevor. I've learned so much here." I placed the resignation letter squarely on his desk and turned to leave. "Wait," he called, his tone shifting. "Let's not be hasty. If this is about compensation, we can discuss adjustments at your performance review. My decision is final. I'll email HR to begin the transition process." I walked out of his office feeling lighter than I had in years. The chain of fear that had bound me to Meridian lay broken behind me. Word spread quickly. By lunchtime, curious glances and whispered conversations followed me through the office. Trevor had apparently called an emergency meeting with senior managers, excluding me, of course. Through the conference room's glass walls, I could see his animated gestures and concerned faces. Allison cornered me by the coffee machine. "Is it true? You're leaving?" 2 weeks, I confirmed. Bold move. Her expression was a mix of admiration and concern. "Where are you going?" "I can't say yet. But it's a good opportunity. Trevor's telling everyone you had some kind of breakdown, that you're throwing away your career on a desperate gamble." I laughed, genuinely amused. "Of course he is. Can't have people thinking Meridian might not be paradise." By afternoon, the office had divided into clear camps. Some colleagues stopped by my desk to wish me well, though always when Trevor wasn't watching. Others avoided me completely, as if career change might be contagious. A few openly sided with Trevor, making comments just loud enough for me to hear about loyalty and professional suicide. The following morning, Trevor summoned me to his office. His initial mockery had transformed into barely contained anger. "You need to complete the year-end analysis before you leave," he demanded. "It's your responsibility." "I'll do my best, but as you know, the timeline was already impossible before my resignation. Your best isn't good enough. I need it done." His face had reddened. "And I expect comprehensive documentation of all your processes and client relationships." "Of course. I've already started preparing transition materials. And you'll need to train Danielle on everything you do. Every system, every model, every client preference." "Ah, So Danielle would inherit my responsibilities, but presumably not my compensation. I'm happy to bring her up to speed. Trevor studied me, clearly frustrated by my calm compliance. He had expected either defiance he could punish or groveling he could dismiss. My professional courtesy left him no opening for either. The next 2 weeks were among the strangest of my professional life. I worked methodically to document processes I had developed over 17 years, knowing that my replacement would benefit from my organizational skills, while Trevor would take credit for the smooth transition. Each day brought new demands from Trevor, each more unreasonable than the last. Stay late to brief the Tokyo team. Come in early to update models before the board meeting. Rewrite the client retention protocol, all while completing regular work and the still impossible year-end analysis. I complied with everything I reasonably could, working longer hours during my notice period than I had in years. Not for Trevor or even for Meridian, but for my own sense of closure. I wanted to leave, knowing I had maintained my integrity to the end. Danielle, my designated replacement, proved surprisingly receptive to training. Initially distant, perhaps by Trevor's design, she gradually revealed herself as intelligent and uncomfortable with the situation. "He told me your position was being eliminated anyway," she confessed during our 3rd training session, "that this was a planned transition. I had no idea you'd resigned." "That's not your fault," I assured her. "Trevor has his own version of reality. He treats everyone terribly," she said, lowering her voice, though we were alone in the conference room. "But the women especially. The things he says when clients aren't around." She shuddered. "Has he said inappropriate things to you?" Danielle hesitated. "Let's just say I've been documenting everything since my 2nd week. My sister's an employment attorney." I looked at her with new appreciation. She wasn't Trevor's willing pawn, but another woman navigating a toxic environment the best she could. "Learn what you can while you're here," I advised. "But know your worth. Don't let Meridian define it for you." She nodded, a look of determination crossing her face. "I won't." The days counted down. I cleared personal items from my desk gradually, not wanting a dramatic final box carry on my last day. Photos of family, coffee mug from a client who had become a friend. Reference books accumulated over years. Each item removed was another thread cut in my connection to Meridian. Through it all, Trevor alternated between ignoring me completely and micromanaging my every move. The rest of the executive team avoided direct interaction, as if my departure had made me radioactive. Only Frank, the CFO, stopped by my desk one afternoon. "Wanted to wish you well, Sabrina," he said quietly. "For what it's worth, your contributions here have been significant. I've always appreciated your thoroughness." "Thank you, Frank. That means a lot." He glanced toward Trevor's office. "Not everyone shares my opinion, but the numbers don't lie. Meridian will feel your absence." It was the closest thing to validation I had received from Meridian leadership in years. Not enough to change my decision, but a balm to wounds still healing. My final day arrived with surprising normalcy. No gathering of colleagues to wish me well. No exit interview with senior management. Just a brief meeting with an HR representative I barely knew to confirm benefit termination dates and return my keycard. Trevor was conspicuously absent, having scheduled an off-site meeting. His final power play, denying me even the formal closure of a farewell from my direct supervisor. I felt nothing but relief. As I prepared to leave for the final time, Allison appeared at my cubicle. "Dinner tonight," she said. "Non-negotiable. We're celebrating your prison break." I smiled, touched by her gesture. "Sounds perfect." I took one last look around the office that had been my professional home for 17 years. The familiar carpet stains, the temperamental copy machine, the view of Chicago's skyline from the break room window. For better or worse, this place had shaped me, but it would no longer define me. I walked to the elevator, card key left on my empty desk, and didn't look back. The morning after my final day at Meridian dawned crisp and clear. October sunshine streamed through my apartment windows as I savored a leisurely breakfast, something I hadn't done on a weekday in years. No urgent emails demanding attention, no conference calls scheduled at impossible hours, no Trevor monitoring my arrival time. The freedom was exhilarating and terrifying. By noon, exhilaration had given way to panic. What had I done? 17 years of stability abandoned for an executive position I wasn't sure I could handle. Trevor's mocking words echoed. "Who's going to hire you at 40? Someone had. But what if they were wrong about me? My breath came in short gasps. The room seemed to shrink around me. I recognized the symptoms of an anxiety attack, something I hadn't experienced since college finals. I forced myself to implement the grounding techniques my therapist had taught me years ago. 5 things I could see, 4 things I could touch, 3 things I could hear. Gradually, my breathing slowed, and reality reasserted itself. My phone rang, startling me. "Amanda, how's freedom?" she asked cheerfully when I answered. "Disorienting," I admitted. "I just had my first panic attack in 20 years. Perfectly normal. You're rewiring decades of neural pathways." Her tone softened. "Want to get lunch?" No business talk, just friends. An hour later, we sat at a restaurant overlooking the Chicago River, autumn leaves drifting on its surface. "I felt the same way when I left Blackstone," Amanda said after I described my morning meltdown. 17 years for you, 12 for me. It's like leaving a long-term relationship. Even a toxic one creates withdrawal." "Exactly. I keep checking my phone for emails that aren't coming. That'll fade. Give yourself permission to decompress. You've earned this break before jumping into the new role." The week that followed became an unexpected journey of rediscovery. I slept past 6 for the first time in years. I visited the Art Institute on a Tuesday morning, wandering unhurried through galleries I had rushed through on crowded weekends. I had lunch with former clients who had become friends, free to speak honestly about my departure from Meridian. Slowly, I remembered there was more to my identity than Sabrina Miller, financial analyst. I was also a sister, a friend, a woman with interests beyond quarterly projections and client retention rates. One afternoon, Amanda texted, "Free tomorrow? Shopping expedition? Non-negotiable?" I met her at Michigan Avenue's high-end retail district, confused by her mysterious invitation. "Executive wardrobe intervention," she announced when I arrived. "Part of your transformation. My clothes aren't appropriate?" I looked down at my conservative business attire, the uniform I'd worn at Meridian for years. "They're fine for a financial analyst, but you're about to be Executive Vice President of Business Development. Your appearance should reflect your authority." Over the next 4 hours, Amanda guided me through stores I had walked past but never entered, price tags far beyond my previous salary range. With Pinnacle's offer, however, these investments in my professional image were now justifiable. "Stop looking at price tags," Amanda admonished as I winced at a particularly expensive blazer. "This is about value, not cost. How you present yourself affects how others perceive your worth." By day's end, I had a wardrobe that would have been unimaginable a month earlier. Tailored suits in rich fabrics, statement pieces that communicated confidence, accessories that finished each look with subtle authority. "Now the final touch," Amanda said, steering me toward an upscale salon, a leadership haircut. 2 hours later, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. My formerly plain, practical haircut had been transformed into a sophisticated style that framed my face perfectly, making me look both more professional and, surprisingly, younger. "Who is that woman?" I whispered, staring at my reflection. Amanda squeezed my shoulder. "That's Executive Vice President Sabrina Miller. She's been there all along, just waiting for the right opportunity." The external transformation was striking, but the internal shift was even more profound. As my start date at Pinnacle approached, I immersed myself in preparation. I studied industry trends I had only peripherally followed at Meridian. I researched Pinnacle's current client base and identified immediate opportunity areas. I drafted a 90-day plan for establishing the new division. Jack had arranged an advance copy of the press release announcing Pinnacle's new division and my appointment. Reading it felt surreal. Sabrina Miller brings 17 years of industry expertise and innovative client acquisition strategies to lead Pinnacle's newest division, Pinnacle Pathways. The night before my first day, I received an unexpected call from Allison. "Just checking in before your big day," she said, "and sharing some Meridian gossip you might appreciate." "I'm listening," I admitted, curious despite myself. "Trevor's been in crisis mode since you left. The year-end analysis is a disaster. Turns out no one else understands your models well enough to complete them properly." I felt a twinge of sympathy for Danielle, undoubtedly bearing the brunt of Trevor's frustration. Poor Danielle. Actually, she's holding her own. Refused to sign off on some numbers Trevor wanted to inflate. Apparently having an employment attorney for a sister gives you backbone. Good for her. Allison paused. "There's something else. A group of us have been talking. After seeing how you were treated and then watching you land on your feet, it's inspiring, Sabrina. 3 people have updated their resumes already." "Really? Who?" "Me, for one. Mark, surprisingly. And Thomas from Client Services." Another pause. "Any chance Pinnacle might be hiring for your division?" My mind raced with possibilities. These were talented people who knew Meridian's systems and clients intimately. "Send me your resumes. I can't promise anything, but I'll certainly consider everyone." "That's all we're asking. And Sabrina? What you did took courage. Don't forget that." Courage. Was that what it was? It had felt like desperation at the time. A leap into the unknown, because standing still had become unbearable. But perhaps that was courage after all. Action despite fear, rather than absence of it. My first day at Pinnacle dawned with nervous anticipation rather than panic. I dressed in one of my new suits, a deep burgundy that would have been considered flashy at Meridian, but felt right for this new chapter. The woman in the mirror looked confident, capable, ready to lead. I was determined to become her. Pinnacle's headquarters occupied the upper floors of a sleek downtown tower. The security guard greeted me by name, a badge already prepared. "Miss Miller, welcome to Pinnacle. Mr. Brooks is expecting you." William met me personally in the lobby, a courtesy I couldn't imagine Trevor extending to any new hire regardless of level. "Sabrina, right on time. Let me show you around before the executive team meeting." The tour revealed a modern, open workspace, so different from Meridian's traditional layout. Teams collaborated in glass-walled rooms with smart boards. The cafeteria buzzed with employees from different departments mingling freely. Even the color scheme, blues and greens rather than Meridian's institutional beige, spoke of a different corporate philosophy. "And this," William said, stopping before a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows, "is your space. We'll adjust anything that doesn't work for you." The office was twice the size of Trevor's, with a separate conference area and state-of-the-art technology. My name was already on the door: Sabrina Miller, Executive Vice President, Pinnacle Pathways. "It's perfect," I managed, overwhelmed by the tangible evidence of my new reality. "Excellent. The executive team is gathering in 10 minutes. Ready to meet your peers?" I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and nodded. Absolutely. As I followed William toward the boardroom, I felt the last lingering doubts fall away. This wasn't a mistake or lucky break. This was where I belonged all along. For the first time in years, I felt truly, completely alive. The launch of Pinnacle Pathways proceeded with breathtaking speed. William believed in capitalizing on momentum, and within days of my arrival, the press release announcing the new division hit the financial newswires. The industry announcement was strategically timed for maximum visibility, appearing in the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, and key financial industry publications simultaneously. I was in a strategy meeting with my newly forming team when Amanda burst in, tablet in hand. "It's live," she announced, setting the tablet before me. The headline read, "Pinnacle Innovations launches revolutionary client acquisition division, taps Meridian veteran as EVP." Below was a professional photo taken during my first week, looking confident in one of my new suits. The article detailed my background, praised my innovative approach to regional market expansion, and outlined Pinnacle Pathways' ambitious goals. William was quoted calling me a visionary strategist whose insights will reshape client acquisition in the financial services sector. "Congratulations," Amanda said, squeezing my shoulder. "How does it feel to be officially public?" "Surreal," I admitted, "but wonderful." Later that afternoon, Jack appeared in my office doorway, grinning. "Have you checked your email in the last hour?" "I've been in meetings." "Why?" 4 client inquiries already, all responding to the announcement. 2 are currently with Meridian." My heart raced. "Which ones?" "Johnson Financial and Westridge Corporation." The Johnson account. My former client that Trevor had reassigned to Mark as punishment for questioning the pay disparity. The irony was delicious. "That's quite a coincidence," I said carefully. Jack's grin widened. "Is it?" Johnson's CFO specifically asked if you would personally handle their transition. The news spread quickly through Pinnacle. By day's end, William had stopped by to congratulate me on the immediate market response. "This validates everything we believed about your value, Sabrina." "Well done." That evening, I received a text from Allison. "Chaos at Meridian. Trevor saw industry announcement. Full meltdown in progress. Priceless." I could imagine the scene. Trevor, perhaps reading the news on his phone during a meeting, face flushing with the realization of what I'd done. Not just left for another position, but become an executive at their direct competitor. Not just any role, but one created specifically around my ideas. Ideas he had dismissed repeatedly. I didn't reply to Allison immediately. Part of me wanted to maintain professional distance from Meridian drama, but another part, the human part, still healing from years of belittlement, couldn't help feeling vindicated. Instead, I texted her, "Let's have coffee Saturday. Bring those resumes we discussed." The weeks that followed were the most challenging and rewarding of my career. Building Pinnacle Pathways from concept to functioning division required every skill I had developed over 17 years, plus rapid acquisition of new ones. I interviewed candidates, established operational protocols, created implementation timelines, and met with key clients. William gave me autonomy I had never experienced at Meridian, checking in regularly but trusting my decisions. Jack and Amanda provided support without micromanagement. The contrast with Trevor's leadership style couldn't have been starker. 3 weeks after the announcement, I received the resumes from Allison, Mark, and Thomas. All were strong candidates with skills that aligned perfectly with our needs. After formal interviews and William's approval, I offered all 3 positions in Pinnacle Pathways with substantial salary increases over their Meridian compensation. "Building your team already?" William remarked when I submitted the hiring requests. "Strategic acquisitions," I replied. "They understand Meridian's client base and will accelerate our implementation timeline." William nodded approvingly. "Talent follows talent. It's one of the most reliable patterns in business." When Allison, Mark, and Thomas submitted their resignations to Trevor within days of each other, the message was unmistakable. This wasn't a single disgruntled employee leaving, but an exodus of top talent. According to Allison's reports, Trevor was alternating between rage and panic, especially as additional Meridian clients began requesting information about Pinnacle's services. 6 months after launching Pinnacle Pathways, we held our first quarterly review with the executive team. The numbers exceeded even our most optimistic projections. Client acquisition rates were 34% above target. Implementation timelines had been met or beaten for every major account. Revenue was trending 18% higher than forecast. "I think we can officially call this a success," William announced as the presentation concluded. "Sabrina, you've proven our investment in you was sound. Pinnacle Pathways is now our fastest-growing division." The acknowledgement felt surreal after years of having my contributions minimized or ignored. Here, my success wasn't threatening to anyone. It was celebrated as collective achievement. That evening, I received an unexpected email from Danielle, my replacement at Meridian. Subject: "Thought you'd want to know. Sabrina, I'm not sure if Meridian news interests you anymore, but I thought you'd want to know that Trevor has been demoted. After multiple complaints, including mine, and the loss of the Johnson and Westridge accounts, the board finally took action. He's no longer department head, just a senior analyst now. Frank is interim director while they search for a permanent replacement. Thank you for showing me what standing up for yourself looks like. It made a difference for many of us. Respectfully, Danielle." I read the email twice, letting the information sink in. Trevor, demoted. His arrogance and discrimination had finally caught up with him, not because I had sought revenge, but because I had refused to accept undervaluation any longer. My departure had created space for others like Danielle to demand better treatment. The next morning, I arrived at my office to find flowers on my desk with a card from William. First semi-anniversary of Pinnacle Pathways. Just the beginning. Looking around my spacious office, at the team visible through the glass walls collaborating effectively, at the respect evident in every interaction, I felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the opportunity Pinnacle had provided, but for the courage I had found to seize it. I thought back to that moment in Trevor's office, resignation letter in hand. "Who's going to hire you at 40? He had laughed. The answer had been simple. A company smart enough to recognize value isn't determined by age or gender, but by skill, vision, and determination. Later that week, I received an email from a former colleague at a different firm. She was 52 and considering a career change, but hesitating because of her age. Could we meet for coffee to discuss my experience? Over lattes the following Saturday, I shared my journey from undervalued analyst to executive leader. Her eyes widened as I described Trevor's mockery, then narrowed with determination as I detailed my success at Pinnacle. "I've been telling myself I'm too old to start over," she admitted. that no one would hire me at my age, that I should just be grateful for what I have. I recognized Trevor's tactics, internalized by yet another talented woman. The world is full of Trevors who benefit from our self-doubt, I told her. But there are also Williams and Amandas who recognize true ability regardless of packaging. How did you find the courage? She asked. I considered the question carefully. I realized staying was the greater risk. Remaining where I wasn't valued was slowly erasing who I was. Starting over was scary, yes, but continuing to disappear would have been devastating. As she left, visibly energized by our conversation, I realized I had found my deeper purpose beyond financial strategy. My experience could help others recognize their worth and find courage to demand proper valuation. The following month, I proposed a new initiative to William, a mentorship program specifically for mid-career professionals, particularly women, seeking transitions to executive roles. He approved it immediately, allocating budget and resources to launch within Pinnacle first, with plans to extend it industry-wide. 1 year after leaving Meridian, I stood before a packed auditorium at a financial services conference, delivering a keynote address on organizational transformation and talent retention. From my vantage point at the podium, I could see Trevor in the audience, now just another face in the crowd rather than the all-powerful figure who had once dominated my professional life. Our eyes met briefly. He looked away first. After my presentation, a line of attendees waited to speak with me. Among them was Frank, Meridian's CFO, now promoted to COO. Impressive speech, he said when his turn came. Meridian's loss was clearly Pinnacle's gain. Thank you, Frank. How are things at Meridian? Changing, slowly but surely. Your departure was a wake-up call for the board. We're implementing many of the policies you discussed today, actually. I smiled, genuinely pleased. That's good to hear. Change benefits everyone, even if it comes from uncomfortable catalysts. He nodded thoughtfully. Any chance you'd consider coming back? In a much more senior role, of course. The question took me by surprise. Return to Meridian? A year ago, I might have found vindication in such an offer. Now, it simply felt like a chapter already closed. I appreciate the thought, Frank, but I'm exactly where I need to be. Pinnacle Pathways is just getting started. As he walked away, I felt the final weight of my Meridian years lift completely. I had nothing left to prove, to Trevor or anyone else. My worth wasn't defined by their recognition or lack thereof. It never had been. That evening I sat in my office looking out at the Chicago skyline as twilight painted the buildings in gold and purple. My team had departed after celebrating another successful quarter. On my desk sat the Industry Achievement Award Pinnacle Pathways had received the previous week. I thought about the terrified woman who had stood in Trevor's office, resignation letter trembling in her hand. "Who's going to hire you at 40?" he had mocked. The answer had been simple all along. Those wise enough to see value where others saw only age and gender. Those smart enough to recognize experience as an asset, not a liability. Those visionary enough to invest in potential others had squandered. Most importantly, I had hired myself, believing in my own worth when others did not. Age isn't the liability in professional life. Self-doubt is. The moment you recognize your true value is the moment you become unstoppable, regardless of the number on your birth certificate or the gender on your ID. Have you ever stayed in a situation that diminished you because you feared the unknown more than the familiar pain? Have you allowed others to define your worth rather than claiming it for yourself? Or maybe you've taken that terrifying leap into valuing yourself properly and found freedom on the other side. I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories of transformation and triumph. Share this with someone who might need to be reminded of their true worth today. Thank you for listening to my journey. Remember, it's never too late to begin again, and you're never too old to claim the respect and recognition you deserve.